Breaking news this hour on 1600. A tentative deal on the stimulus package has been reached. The deal would put the price tag at just under $800 billion. The Senate is in recess right now. They are expected to reconvene in just a few minutes. And to underscore just how significant and how close the vote may be, the Dow Jones Wire is now reporting that Senator Edward Kennedy, Democrat from Massachusetts, who is battling a brain tumor, is now on his way back to Washington to cast a vote on the stimulus package. Let's bring in Ed Schultz, host of the nationally syndicated Ed Schultz Show, MSNBC political analyst Pat Buchanan, and back with us, of course, is Ron Brownstein, political director for Atlantic Media and columnist for the National Journal. Ed, every vote counts. It looks like the Democrats, it's going to be close to get to 60. What do you make of it?
Boy, they need Al Franken now, don't they? They all count. It's a victory for the president. He got animated last night, got off script, told it like it was, spoke for the American people. This is what the American people want. I think it's a good strategic package. 80% of it's going to be spent probably in the first 2 years. They're going to hold back 20% of it to see how it plays with the economy and where they can patch up from there. It's kind of patterned after what happened back in the 30s. And I think this will get people working. The Republicans have been hung up on tax cuts. How do you give somebody a tax cut if they don't have a job? This is about getting people back to work, and I think this package will do that.
Pat?
How do you give somebody a tax cut if they don't pay any taxes? But look, this afternoon the bill was at $935 billion. It's now down at $790. I mean, Susan Collins and Harry Reid just rearranged $140 billion. Is this the way the government of the United States legislates? This is an absurdity. Politically, my guess is it's going to get through one way or another. I don't know if some Democrats will bail out because there's not enough pork or their stuff's been taken out, but they're going to get this thing. But I'll tell you, it had better work. Because if this thing doesn't get the economy really moving up by 2010 in the fall, the people behind this monstrosity, there'll be a bloodbath.
While the process may be viewed as an absurdity by a lot of people, there was President Obama last night fired up and talking about the larger context, the mess that he found himself and this administration found themselves in. Here is President Obama from last night.
First of all, I found this deficit when I showed up. I found this national debt doubled, wrapped in a big bow waiting for me as I stepped into the Oval Office.
I mean, Ron, it's not as if they had several months to try to figure this out or to try to deal with this.
And in fact, one of his most powerful arguments, I think, in this debate is that what Republicans are essentially calling for is a continuation of the Bush policies focused on tax cuts that have left the economy in this condition and did not produce meaningful median income growth over 8 years. So he does have some assets here, but I think both sides have taken on some risks. Pat's point here that this has become a more this bill has been stamped as the Democratic solution, and that Obama, I think, has also, as we talked about before, lost control to some extent of the debate over certainly the past week, that he has lost a message of fiscal discipline as being part of this, which he made it tougher for some of those red state Democrats to come along with him. From your part of the woods, people like Ken Conrad or Claire McCaskill were uneasy about this as well. And it will be, in the end, an important policy victory. If they get this through, he is redirecting federal priorities in a profound way to a degree that presidents often don't get to do over their entire first term. But there is no doubt there's political risk. There's also political risk, as we were talking about before, for Republicans if they are seen as obstructionist on something at a moment of this gravity.
What is it that the Republicans don't get about 600,000 people losing their job in 1 month? This is about putting people back to work. And the best way to do that is to get an infusion of federal dollars because there's a guarantee that the money's going to be spent. GPD is going down. Demand is going down. The market's shaky. Credit's tight. What else can you do? I mean, we're out of options at this point. I think that this is our best available option right now. And if the Republicans want to say tax cuts, that's not going to ring good. The thing that I find amazing, Republicans just got off the campaign trail. Didn't they listen to the American people?
How do we get into the mess? You're right. George Bush walked us into it. He had a $80 billion deficit in this year, and you had cheap money, and Greenspan had cheap money in the entire decade. That's what got us into it. So now we say big deficits and cheap money got us into it. Bigger deficits and cheaper money are going to get us out of it. This is a gamble. This is a gamble with the economy. It's not simply with politics. It doesn't matter that much. But this is a gamble with democratic capitalism. And I don't know when this has ever worked before, this approach.
Well, the issue is with Democrats, it doesn't matter. If this doesn't work, it's not going to matter. They're going to be in deep trouble. So I would suggest, the Democrats have a greater risk by doing nothing or by going along with the Republicans because, again, they're out of place. They don't have anything left. Ron.
Well, I would say I would be cautious, though, about assuming who's going to be in trouble if the economy stays weak in 2010. I think it's not clear. I mean, all the polling as Obama came in was that people recognized what he said in your clip, that he was handed a very difficult situation, and there is an incentive to give him some time to try to work it out. Now, obviously, the economy is bad. That's not going to be good for Democrats in 2010. But as we were saying, there's also risk for Republicans in seeming both to either be simply obstructionist or continuing on the same course without that we've had for the last 8 years without really adjusting. Every Republican in the Senate, every single one, voted for that McCain alternative that was almost entirely focused on tax cuts.
Every single Republican also voted for an alternative that essentially had no spending whatsoever, only tax cuts.
Let's take a look at history, though. Clinton, his tax bill, every single Republican voted against it. It got through. The economy wasn't doing that well in '94. They lost both houses of Congress. Does anybody think the economy is going to be doing as well in 2010 as it was doing in 1994?
Well, the thing is, if you don't give some of these states some education money and money for health care, you're going to see a lot of teachers starting to be laid off. And, 600,000 people losing their jobs in January, sure, it sort of strikes people as, oh, it's the worst in 34 years. But when thousands of teachers start getting laid off because states have to balance their budgets, and you know what? They're done. They have to balance the budget. They have to do it on the backs of teachers. That's when people are going to start.
Government's the one area where there's been plenty of jobs, and the jobs are growing.
Pat Buchanan, Ron Brownstein, Ed Schultz, thank you very much. We appreciate it.